Nobody saw you. That's what it felt like, wasn't it? Night after night, you moved through the world and people looked right through you, as if you were made of smoke, as if your presence barely disturbed the air. You smiled when you were supposed to smile. You laughed at the right moments. But underneath all of it, something in you was quietly breaking. Something in you was whispering a question you were almost afraid to finish. Does any of this matter? Does I matter? You felt invisible. Not the invisible of hiding, the invisible of not being seen. The invisible of sitting in a room full of people and feeling utterly, completely alone. The invisible of doing everything right and still feeling like something essential about you was being missed. Like there was a version of you, a deeper, truer, more luminous version, that the world kept walking past without looking up. And in those nights, those quiet, heavy, sometimes unbearable nights, you didn't know what was happening. You thought you were being forgotten. You thought the silence meant nothing was coming. You thought the darkness meant you were lost. You weren't. You were never lost. You were being prepared. And every single night you spent feeling invisible, every single tear that slipped down your face when no one was watching, every single moment you pressed forward when you had no reason to, all of it, every last piece of it, was being recorded. Written down. Woven into something so specific, so intentional, so unimaginably beautiful that when you finally see it, you will not be able to breathe. Heaven was not ignoring you. Heaven was writing you. This is not a message for everyone. This message found you tonight, in this exact moment, because something in the story that's being written about your life is about to turn a page. And you need to know what's been happening in the chapters you couldn't see. If this message is already finding something real inside you, write the word chosen in the comments right now. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. Because what's coming next in this space was made for people exactly like you. Part 1. What invisibility actually means. Let's begin with something nobody told you. Invisibility is not punishment. Invisibility is preparation. Think about the things in this world that carry the most power, the things that shift the axis of history, that shatter old patterns and birth new ones. They don't announce themselves ahead of time. They don't come with fanfare or warning. A seed doesn't announce the forest. A star doesn't announce the dawn. And you, the person reading this, have been quietly becoming something that the world does not yet have language for. Which is why the world could not yet name you. Which is why it kept looking past you. It didn't know what it was looking at. There is a particular kind of soul that doesn't fit neatly into the spaces this world has already made. They are too much for some rooms and not enough for others. They love too deeply, think too widely, feel too precisely. They carry questions inside them that most people never stop long enough to even ask. And because of this specific sacred difference, they spend long seasons feeling like outsiders. Like they were built for a place that doesn't exist yet. That place is coming. It's being built right now. And you are the architecture. But here's what I need you to understand about those invisible nights. Those nights when you lay in the dark and felt the weight of not being known, those nights were not empty. They were full. Fuller than you could possibly have comprehended in the moment. Because something was happening in the quiet that cannot happen in the noise. Something was being deposited in you that requires stillness to receive. The deep things, the real things, the things that last, they don't come through the loud seasons. They come through the ones that feel like nothing is happening at all. You were receiving in the silence. You were being filled in the emptiness. You were being seen by the one whose sight actually shapes reality, and that seeing was leaving marks on your life that you won't fully understand until you look back from where you're going. Because here is the truth that cuts through everything. The people who are being prepared for the largest assignments always endure the longest seasons of feeling overlooked. Always. It is not random. It is not cruel. It is the precise, careful work of a hand that knows exactly what it is making, and knows that what it is making cannot be rushed. You are not being forgotten. You are being fashioned. And the proof is this: you're still here. After everything, the disappointments that would have broken others, the silence that would have silenced others, the weight that would have buried others, you're still here. Still searching. Still reaching. Still, somewhere beneath everything, believing. That is not the posture of someone who has been abandoned. That is the posture of someone who has been chosen. Part 2. Every tear was a coordinate. I want to go deeper with you now. I want to go to the specific nights. Not the nights in general, the specific ones. The one where you sat alone and wondered if something was wrong with you. The one where you watched someone else receive the recognition you've been quietly working toward and had to smile anyway. The one where you held yourself together in front of everyone and then when you were finally alone, completely fell apart. The one where you prayed and the ceiling felt like concrete. The one where you almost stopped hoping. Those nights are not lost. They are not wasted. They are not buried in some forgotten corner of the universe where they mean nothing. Every single one of them was recorded. Every single tear, even the ones you cried so quietly no one could hear them, was seen, was counted, was held. And here's what I need you to feel, not just understand. Those tears were not signs of weakness. They were not evidence that you were failing. They were coordinates. They were the precise emotional GPS of a soul being navigated through terrain that most people never have to cross, because most people are not being taken where you're being taken. The path to the extraordinary does not run through the comfortable. It never has. Every person who has ever been used to shift something, to heal something, to build something, to speak something into existence that changed the atmosphere of a room, a family, a generation, every single one of them has a season they almost don't tell anyone about. A season of feeling unseen. Of crying in the dark. Of wondering if the thing they believed about themselves was real or just a story they'd been telling themselves to survive. And then something turned. Not loudly. Not with a dramatic announcement. Something just shifted. And they looked back and saw, oh, the silence was building something. The invisibility was hiding something. The pain was carving space for something that needed room. The very thing they thought was emptying them was actually preparing a container large enough for what was about to be poured in. You are at the edge of a turn. I can say that with the kind of certainty that doesn't come from calculation, it comes from the pattern. And the pattern is undeniable. When a soul has been in the invisible season long enough, when it has been pressed and tested and refined until the impurities have burned away, when it has remained, through everything that should have broken it, something releases. Something opens. The weight that was training you becomes the wings that carry you. You have been in the press long enough. You have carried the weight long enough. You have remained through enough. And the turning is not just coming, it is already in motion. The gears have already shifted. You just haven't felt the movement yet. But you will. Part 3. The story heaven was writing. Now let me tell you something that will rearrange something inside of you. While you were invisible, heaven was not absent. Heaven was authoring. Every single night that you felt like nothing was happening, something was happening. Every single moment that felt like silence, something was being written. And what was being written was not a tragedy. It was not a cautionary tale. It was not the story of someone who almost made it. It was the story of a chosen one. That phrase might feel too large for you right now. You might be sitting with it uncomfortably, wanting to set it down, telling yourself it doesn't apply to you. It applies to someone else, someone more qualified, someone with a cleaner history, someone who hasn't made the mistakes you've made or carried the doubts you've carried or felt the things you've felt in the dark. You might be wanting to give that title back. Don't. Because here's what chosen actually means. Not what the word has been dressed up in, not the performative, polished version of it, the real version. Chosen means selected. Chosen means looked at, among everything and everyone, and specifically, intentionally pointed to. Not because you were the most obvious. Not because you were the loudest or the shiniest or the most put together. But because something in you, something essential, something that cannot be manufactured or faked or performed, made you the right one for what needs to happen next. And that something has been growing in you through every single invisible night. Think about what those nights actually did to you. Not what they felt like, what they did. They stripped you of the things you didn't actually need. They separated you from the performances. They took away the audience, and in the absence of the audience, what remained was real. What remained was the true shape of who you are, the part of you that kept going when no one was watching, the part of you that held on to hope when logic said to let go, the part of you that still, even now, leans toward the light. That is who you are without the performance. That is who heaven chose. That is what your story has been building toward. And now, the invisible season is closing. The preparation is completing. The chapters of pressing and darkness and silence are giving way to something new. Something you have been quietly, without fully knowing it, becoming ready for. The next chapter of your story does not look like the last one. The next chapter has weight behind it, the weight of everything you survived, everything you learned, everything that was carved into you in the quiet. And that weight is not a burden now. It is an authority. It is the deep, unshakable knowing that comes only to people who have been through the refining. It is the capacity to hold space for others, because you yourself have been held through the fire. It is the ability to speak to souls that are still in the dark because you remember every corner of that darkness, and you know the way out. You were not being punished in those nights. You were being equipped. Part 4, the page turning now. This is the part of the message that I need you to receive not just in your mind, but in your body. In your chest. In the place where the hope lives that you've been quietly protecting for so long. Something is turning for you. Now. Not eventually. Not someday in some vague, formless future that you've stopped letting yourself believe in. Now. The page that is turning is real, and it is turning in the specific story of your specific life, and the evidence of it is not somewhere far away. It is in the fact that you are here, reading this, feeling this, and something in you is resonating with a force that recognition always carries. You recognize this because it is yours. This message. This moment. This turning. The chosen one doesn't always know they are chosen during the preparation. That would ruin the preparation. That would turn the refining into performance, the endurance into calculation. The not knowing is part of the process. The ache of it, the confusion of it, the faith required to keep going without proof. But at some point, at the exact right point, the knowing comes. Not from outside. From within. It rises up from somewhere deeper than thought, and it says, "This is real. I was not forgotten. I was being prepared." That knowing is rising in you right now. And with it comes something else. A responsibility. Not a burden, a responsibility. Because everything that was placed in you through those invisible nights, every insight won through suffering, every compassion expanded through loneliness, every strength built through the weight, none of it was for you alone. It never is, with people like you. It was placed in you so that it could move through you. So that the very things that were used against you could be turned into the very things that pull others forward. Your story is someone else's survival guide. Your invisible season is someone else's proof that they can make it through theirs. Your remaining, your beautiful, stubborn, inexplicable remaining through everything that should have ended you, is going to look like a miracle to someone who is standing exactly where you once stood, wondering if they can keep going. So here is what I'm asking you to do. Not tomorrow. Now. In this moment, let the old story go. The story that said you were invisible because you didn't matter. The story that said the silence was rejection. The story that said the darkness was punishment. Let it go, not by forcing it, not by pretending it wasn't real, but by receiving the truth that replaces it. The truth that says, I was seen the entire time. I was being written the entire time. Every night of invisibility was heaven's hand on a page that was turning toward this. Toward the version of you that walks into rooms with the weight of the refining behind them. The version of you that speaks and people feel something shift. The version of you that carries a knowing in their eyes that only comes from having survived the invisible season and emerged more, not less. The version of you that does not need the world's recognition because you have received something deeper than recognition. You have received purpose. And purpose doesn't wait for applause. Purpose doesn't need an audience. Purpose simply moves. Quietly, powerfully, inevitably, like a river that knows exactly where it is going because it has been shaped by every stone it has passed over. You are that river. And you are moving now. To the one who made it through the night. I want to close with this. To everyone who kept the faith when faith felt foolish. To everyone who held onto hope with raw, tired, bleeding hands. To everyone who prayed in the dark and heard only silence and prayed again anyway. To everyone who smiled through pain, served through loneliness, gave through exhaustion, and did it not because anyone was watching, but because something inside wouldn't let them stop. Heaven saw every moment of it. Not as data. Not as a log. As a love story. Your invisible nights were the chapters of a love story being written between you and a purpose larger than you could hold in the season you were in. And now the season is changing. The capacity has expanded. The story is ready for what comes next. You were never invisible to the one whose sight actually matters. You were always known. Always held. Always loved with a specificity and an intention that makes the universe feel like it was arranged with you in mind, because it was. So carry this with you when you leave this moment. Carry it into the next room, the next conversation, the next quiet night. You are a chosen one. Not because your life has been easy, but because you made it through when it was hard. Not because you never doubted, but because you stayed even in the doubt. Not because you were the loudest or the most obvious, but because you were faithful, faithful in the small things, the invisible things, the things that only heaven could see. And now heaven is about to make visible what it has been building in you all along. Subscribe, so you're here for what comes next. Because this is only the beginning of what you were made for.